and welcome to the Comic Conspiracy Podcast, episode 458 for the week of June 30th, 2020. My name is Ryan Higgins, who's here with me this week.
Brock Sager.
Obi-Wan, Toby-Wan.
There's Toby.
And Kevin.
And Kevin. Toby, your weird names that you type in Zencaster at the beginning, you have like 3 or 4. Just put Toby next time. And mine comes up with my screen name because that's the name on the account. So otherwise I would change my name. But I guess it doesn't matter. That's fine. Hey, we're going to talk about some comic book stuff here.
Are you sure?
Yeah, pretty sure.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the continued skeeviness of some comic book pros here. Hopefully you're not a fan of any of these people because they won't be working in the comic book industry anytime soon. What's funny about the now in our, obviously sexual harassment in comic books go way back, but the second sort of more recent wave of people that have been ousted from companies or
new allegations and
not kind of companies have severed a lot of these creators and executives. Because especially the 3 that kind of were big over the last couple of days, these are not new. Some of the allegations are, but the people have been long since kind of mentioned as like troubled people to work with. And the companies just never got rid of these people. But now, due to even more stuff coming out from these from creators that have worked with these people, Scott Alley, who was one of the he was a writer, but also a longtime editor at Dark Horse, and worked with Mike Mignola on a lot of his projects. He is now completely gone from any Dark Horse project as well as anything involving Mike Mignola. And again, his allegations go back years and years, and some of the recent comments have been pretty severe about Scott Alley. So he will no longer be working in the comic book industry, not directly comic book related, but the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund has actually gone through a major overhaul. Charles Brownstein, who was the executive director of the Legal Defense Fund, stepped down after multiple allegations of sexual professional misconduct have come back in the light. He's finally stepped down, and actually a big chunk of the people I know. God, I don't have the list in front of me here. More people stepped down, not because of sexual allegations, just because they're trying to they want to really change up how the Comic Legal Defense Fund is run, to the point of, I've even read today, it's possible they may close entirely and sort of reform some new organization to do what the Legal Defense Fund does. So we don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I have no idea what the Legal Defense Fund's going to look like in the next couple of months. But they're a pretty big standard part of a lot of the charity work done around the industry. But multiple creators have come out and said, we've been quiet in why we have not supported the Legal Defense Fund. Well, now we're not quiet because of the people involved. And finally, Scott Lobdell, longtime Marvel and DC writer, most recently and very long run on the Red Hood. After a couple allegations came out against him a while back, it seemed like that nothing really came of that for the most part.
According to the article, it was he had come forward about being the unnamed person in that and apologized in those previous ones.
Yeah, there was a previous situation at a convention where he was on a panel, was pretty verbally is abusive the right word? I'm not 100% sure. But definitely not professional. And then he continued to work at DC for years after that. Well, he announced today out of nowhere that he was stepping away from not only Red Hood, but entirely from freelance creator work. And immediately multiple creators said, oh, good, well, here's shit he was doing in the past to us more accounts of similar. Not only is kind of like weird verbal, like sexual verbal. Yeah, again, is verbal assault the right word? Probably. I'm not 100% sure what the right word here would be, but definitely trying to not only groom some younger creators, but also being way too sexually explicit with people he didn't know and making them feel very, very uncomfortable. So I'm not sure what his intent there was, if he was trying to actually do any of this stuff or if he was just trying to be nasty. I don't know. It's not 100% clear. I know not too many people are sad to see Scott Lobdell leave. He definitely was one of those creators that people are like, why is he still at DC? On a personal level, his run on Red Hood's been fine. I haven't hated it, but, I know some people really, really hate his work outside of any of the allegations. So I'm gonna guess he kind of felt like a DiDio guy to me. I think he was sort of maybe under DiDio's protection a little bit. I don't want to make that claim as a permanent, as a definitive, but a couple of DiDio's guys probably aren't going to be around too much longer.
Well, there's another, what's the word I want here? There's another patron that might be, if one is not under DiDio's wing, there's another wing that one might be under. And I don't want to really pursue it any further than that, but
at DC.
Yeah. Because but with Dan gone, you might still be in another kind of protected camp.
Yeah. Well, there are definitely multiple. Editors that have like their people. This is going to be like any place, right? I mean, I think Marvel's the same. Image is probably the same. So, I know when they've had like big problems, like Eddie Berganza, when they pulled him off everything, they had to reshuffle the head editor of every little batch of books. So the editorial shift happens. I want to say regularly enough, but it's been pretty solid. I feel in Rebirth. I don't think there's been that massive of a change at the head editorial levels for each. The Batman books, the Superman books. I think they've maybe changed a little bit, but it's more the lower tier of editors that have shifted around, which multiple have left Marvel and DC due to problems with management and some. Another week of people.
Now I want to say something.
Just don't be a scumbag.
That's definitely true. Don't be a scumbag. But the Scott Alley one specifically, like when that dropped at the middle of last week.
Yeah.
Right. Like they posted a picture of the guy, and I'm like, yeah, no surprise there. Like,
wow,
the guy
looks
creepy. Oh, it's pretty bad.
He's a weird looking dude.
That hair, man. What's up with that hair?
Hey, man.
Like, it was.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus.
The allegations against him are pretty severe. This won't be the end. Obviously, just continuously will happen forever. Just unfortunate. That's all I've got to say about that. If anyone has any comments, feel free to jump in.
I mean, we talked about it at length for 2 podcasts now, kind of. So
yeah,
it's just I'm glad that these allegations are coming out and that they're being heard, because I think that's a huge barrier in that, which is part of the reason why these predators or whatever are getting away with things, is because there's sort of a fear of coming out and a stigma of being labeled as somebody who basically brings bad behavior to the forefront. But yeah, I think it's,
of course.
I think it's 2 things are very important, is that we're the community is generally, as supportive, is supportive when these things come out and figuring out what's, the truth of it all. But it's also, like you said earlier, don't be a douchebag. Like 2020, we're all going through garbage. you should already have learned to be a decent human being. So,
well, unfortunately, everyone learns that at different points, and some people never learn it.
Yep.
Let's talk about some fun stuff.
Fun stuff. What's fun today?
Let's talk about Batman 3 Jokers. Kevin, they have thrown out in the gauntlet, not only with orders coming in on our initial order and order dates being set for FOC, meaning that's, we get ordered by, they have official dates, August 26th, September 30th, and October 28th for the 3 issues. So those final weeks of August, September, and October. However, DC is trying something very interesting, and I want to see if it works. So basically, people listening, if you're not familiar, a lot of comic stores, and we've done a few ourselves, a lot of comic stores have done what's called a store exclusive variant cover, where we get to purchase an exclusive cover. So it's the same material, so it's like any other variant, but it is a cover, has the store logo on the back usually. And one reason that a lot of stores can't get to do store exclusive covers is because just of the quantity you have to order to be able to get one. It's a lot of copies. Yeah. Some places are built to, their whole entire thing is around store exclusive covers and selling online and conventions and yada, yada, yada. So for a lot of just, regular smaller brick and mortar stores like us, it doesn't make financial sense to do it because the reach to sell that many copies, except for like very specific books, can be very difficult. We've never lost money on any of the ones we've done, but we're not going to sell as many as Torpedo when they get their 7 Jim Lee variant covers. So I'm not the only one that's ever suggested this, but more recently I'd actually suggested this on the DC retailer forum. And I said, hey, have you guys thought about, stores can split exclusive covers, but has DC ever thought about actually making covers available through their own system that are exclusive to, the first X amount of stores that sign up? So it's not exactly what they did, but I really want to see how this works out. So they have their new plan. They're testing with 3 Jokers. It's the first time doing it. They've come out with what's called the Premier variants. There's going to be 9 of these Premier variant covers for 3 Jokers. So they're going to have the main cover, but that's Joker, and the variant cover, the standard variant cover, which is going to be Batman, Batman, Catwoman, and someone else. I'm assuming Red Hood. I don't remember who the other variant cover is. So those are the main covers on 3 Jokers. Then they're going to have these special variant covers. Stores have to order a minimum amount of copies to qualify for these. So you can't order 2 copies. It's set up only at a minimum of 50 copies, which is really, to me, totally doable for a lot of stores. But there are going to be stores that can't do it. And so this sort of gives select stores that are not big, but not small, sort of in that mid-range like we are, a chance to really jump in on some awesome covers. So if you want to participate, you have to order 50 of each. So that is a lot of copies. I guess if you don't have Batman fans, it doesn't make sense. But
who doesn't have Batman fans in their stores?
Well, I've talked to some stores where Batman doesn't sell very well. On the other hand, a Jeff Johns Batman / Joker comic in 2020 will do just fine for us. So Batman 3 Jokers number 1 will also have the Joker Red Hood variant cover, which is, Joker and the Red Hood. The Joker Fish. There's also a Joker Bomb variant cover, but I believe that's one of the ones we don't have the artwork for. I'm assuming that's Joker Bomb. I don't know. Joker with a bomb. Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. I don't know. I don't know what the Joker Bomb cover is. I haven't seen that one.
It's probably just a bomb that says "ha ha" on it, or just "ha."
So there's different.
Or a smile.
All of these are based on sort of different takes on the Joker. So there's for 3 Jokers 2, it's a Joker Behind Bars, which I believe is the Chris Nolan sort of inspired one. Death in the Family, Top Hat and Monocle, and then the Joker applying makeup version, which I feel like that's the other one we didn't see. I can't remember. And then number 3 has
applying makeup.
Which one is it? Which is that one that
It's the one that he's still tan.
Oh, that's from yeah. Sorry. No, I should do have the list here. Yeah, I don't remember what that's from. Well, anyway, so they have the Hawaiian shirt Killing Joke
That one is creepy
cover.
as shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just like I got a Killing Joke. There's the stand-up comedian, and then the Endgame Mohawk version. So that's from the New 52 stuff. So those are all the variant covers for Three Jokers number 3. So this is a pretty cool program, especially if you're a mid-sized store. It's obviously maybe a stretch for some stores, but I think if you have a decent amount of Batman fans, this is going to be pretty big. And these aren't available everywhere, so and fuck, it's Three Jokers. It's going to be huge. It's going to be big. Kevin, can I put you down for a set of all 15 covers? Wait, I'm sorry. Should I say 16 covers? Because apparently there's also going to be a special. If you order 50 copies of each, so 50 of all 9 covers, you get 1 copy of like a collage cover that has all the covers thrown together. I don't exactly know what it's going to look like. Maybe it'd be really bad. I'm not sure. So that's basically like a 1 in 450 variant cover.
So, quick question.
But since this is a Jeff John comic, I'll take that one for myself.
Yeah, like the store, it's not even hit the store. Like,
it's good to be the king. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. It's good.
Now, are you excited about the playing card also?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the other promo they're doing for it too. Yeah. They have some.
But that's the standard cover, isn't it? That just comes with, I think.
Yeah, they have. It's just like a single card. It's not like a deck of cards or anything.
I think
like
each issue has its own card.
Yeah. And so those are going to come with the main book. I don't know the exact number. I'm assuming it's like 1-to-1. So we'll get a big stack of those cards to give out too. Yeah, those look neat. So I love these little promos. I love this stuff. The variant covers all look awesome. Look, not a lot of comics can support 5 covers. Marvel loves putting out books with like 87 covers. I'm going to give you 3 Jokers by Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok after all this time. Yeah, sure. Give me 5 covers. I got no problem with this.
What's cool about it is that they're all by Fabok.
Yeah. And they all
it's not just a bunch of people cranking out variants for the sake of variants. It's the series artist giving what we assume are takes on the Joker that may or may not be seen in the actual book itself.
Yeah, it's an interesting. We still have no idea what Three Jokers is about. I mean, we do in the broad sense of, hey, there's 3 Jokers, but how any of this comes to play, I have no idea. No idea where Jeff Johns is going to go with the story. And these, I mean, Fabok, he nails those styles, man. That Death in the Family, the one with the monocle and top hat. I mean, It's not exactly the same as the Death in the Family art, but I mean, it really nails it. And obviously the Killing Joke one, just fantastic. So
it's like anytime I see wits on a camera, I'm like, Killing Joke.
Yeah, we're not 100% sure. They're hopefully going to be up for order pretty soon. At least through us on Comic Hub. I know there's been some issues with DC since they've moved over to the new distributor. We've had some data issues. If you have a store that uses Comic Hub, they're the July catalog for Diamond and now all the new companies, there's some problems. There's problems with every system, regardless of what you use. DC is still working on getting a lot of that data figured out. So for now, just wait. We still have plenty of time before the catalog's due. It's not even July. It's only still the 30th. Toby, got a story for you.
Okay.
You like Nightwing, right?
Yeah. One.
Yeah, like Nightwing.
One.
I mean, any rational person likes Nightwing.
I think they should.
Any rational person, Brock, should love Nightwing. He is, of course, one of, if not the most important comic characters of all time.
What are you saying?
Nightwing, he's one of the best characters ever created in comic books.
Absolutely.
Correct?
You mean Rick?
Nope. Never heard of Rick. Don't know who Rick is. Well, me and Toby love.
We know you love some Dick. We know you love
Dick Grayson. But there's been a long rumor that Dan DiDio, former, what's his official title at the end there? Publisher, co-publisher, in all his various roles, hates Wally West and Dick Grayson. personally, some of my favorite characters, Toby, I think some of your, at least
Actually,
Dick Grayson.
when we had drinks with him at the bar, I should have slapped him in the face. Proud about this. I mean, I had a chance to yell at him, but I didn't. Aren't you proud I didn't yell at him at a convention?
Kevin, your taste skew a couple of years older than us. What's your take on Dick Grayson and Wally West?
You mean Dan's comments or my?
No, your personal comments or your personal opinions.
Well, but remember, I'm of that new Teen Titans generation. So that's my favorite Robin. That will always be my favorite Robin.
Do you like Nightwing?
I do like and I like the original Nightwing costume too. I still am a champion of that costume. I like that character in all his iterations, although I never read the Secret Agent version.
Grayson?
Yeah.
Really good.
Grayson's really good. Yeah.
Okay. So I love that character. Wally, I liked him in the Teen Titans. I don't really have an opinion. I liked that Flash run right after Crisis.
Yeah.
The Mike Barron, I think, was the writer. Pre-Wade.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have the kind of the love for Wally that I do for Dick Grayson, but I like them both.
Well, for a lot of fans, kind of me, Brock Toby's age and around there by a couple years, Wally was the Flash when we started reading comics. I mean, Barry had been dead for a couple of years. It's funny. We'll talk about this later because I've been going through a Crisis era little reading. We'll talk about that probably after this real quick. But yeah, if you started reading comics in the 90s, and that was when, man, those Wally. Did you read the Mark Waid run pre Jeff Johns? I'm talking like Mark Waid into the Grant Morrison stuff like that. Did you read those?
Me? No.
Kevin, did you read that for Wally?
That was the period when I wasn't really reading comics at all.
Because
I think I've read a couple of the trades out of that era, but not like the whole thing.
It's good. I mean, Mark Waid's run on Flash is, he probably would rather have been writing Barry, but he perfect with Wally and building up the whole like kind of new Flash family and Flash legacy.
I mean, it was Wade's one that all the other stuff came out from, wasn't it? Like the Impulse stuff and all of that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, characters like all that stuff expanded out of what Mark Waid did. There was just this really post-Crisis. I mean, this was the case with every character, right? It was just Superman. It was just Wally, right? There wasn't this huge family. It took years for Mark Waid to like really flesh out that Flash family. They obviously did not want that originally, but over time, these things just came back. And God, by the end there, which got into like the tail end of Mark Waid's run, there's a huge cast of additional characters. But Dan DiDio had a great little interview on Newsarama. I heard he gave another interview.
Yeah, it was like in multiple parts, right? Or
yeah, so the one he did with Jim for Newsarama, Jim McLaughlin.
Yep. That
was focused on Dan as publisher of DC and looking back at, and so Dan and I have conversed since this, and so so mine with Dan is about geeking out about comics and the comic industry. They're very different. We just didn't want them to run on subsequent weeks.
All right. When's yours coming up?
Probably mid-July.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. I didn't blow anything, did I?
No.
Okay. Good.
No.
Good. Yeah.
I talked about it last time I was on.
You did. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin's interviewing DiDio. It'll be out in the middle of July.
What was that, Jim?
Oh no, I was saying, Kevin, you should have just made Ryan sweat a little bit. Yeah, you did blow.
Yeah. After he announces it on
exactly.
Air. Well, I'll just edit it out of the podcast.
And
then I'll forget to edit it. No, I'm joking.
The stuff that he's talking about in this, specifically what you're about to get to, I think, we didn't stray into any areas like that because I just wanted to talk to Dan about his comics fandom, not specifically decisions he made at DC. Right.
Yeah, there's a 3-part Newsarama article that's really good. It does get into a lot of Dan DiDio's. Now that we can kind of look back at it as a full kind of picture, kind of look at what his highs and lows and what he liked. But totally understand his point of view with Wally West and Dick Grayson, and it makes a lot of sense. I just figure there's got to be comic booky ways to make it work because it always has. They've always found ways to make this work. So,
well, for the listeners who didn't read the interview yet, what was his view?
I'm gonna tell you right now.
Excellent.
So I'm gonna quote some of this article here.
Drinking some water.
I'm gonna quote some of this here. Some of it'll be a direct quote. Some will be paraphrasing here. He says with Wally, it was a core concept issue that it always came down. He was never his own character. He was always dependent on Barry Allen. And so if you're going to use the Flash, you have to go back to Barry because that's where the story starts. Again, I don't disagree at a base level, but I love the legacy stuff. I think you can do interesting stuff with both. They can come from new angles. They are very different characters now. Especially.
Yeah, but
on Kevin's face is.
But Ryan, yeah. I'm okay. I'm going to say this off the top of my head with 99% certainty that I would stand by this point of view no matter what challengers came. Kid Flash has the worst origin in the history of comic books.
Just the fact
that DiDio have the stigma of not liking Legacy. I mean, for a while there, especially with New 52. I'm not saying he doesn't like it.
That's the whole.
Right?
And this was and this was what kind of DC's point was post-Crisis, where they're like, we don't want 20 super characters. It's just Superman. They're not special anymore. But the DC fandom is so strong around Legacy.
Well, for those who don't remember this from the Silver Age, I don't know how often it's been retold or been re-updated. It's Barry taking his nephew Wally on a tour of the lab where he became the Flash, and lightning comes through the window and strikes the chemicals, and they land on Wally, and he gets super speed.
Same thing happens.
The literal same origin. So what Dan's point is, that character doesn't stand on his own.
Right.
You have to have Barry, or there is no origin.
Right. Well, I think there are ways that they could, and then they have in the comics been like, oh, it actually, like, Wally in the future was the lightning that came back that struck himself and stuff, right? So, like, there's ways to make that interesting.
Gave our listeners a headache.
Trust me, if you read The Flash, this is nothing. You're super used to it. With Dick Grayson, though, there was an aging problem is that Bruce Wayne will never age, right? Batman and Superman, so Dick Grayson and Wally West have to stop aging because they can't become older than Barry and Bruce and Clark and everything like that.
They get to live their college years over and over again and again.
So because Bruce doesn't age and Dick Grayson is going to be the old guy if he keeps growing up, they consistently force the reboots because it creates these log jams and multiple interpretations of characters all sharing the same name. And especially if you're adding more and more new people that are Robins coming in, Dick Grayson.
God, there's so many Robins.
Tenure as Robin must be less and less as you now have 7, 8, 9 characters that have taken that role. So again, I understand, but to me, that's what the Nightwing character does. Is it gives a clean breaking point for Nightwing to be his own character outside of everything else, and that is the point at which you stop aging Nightwing.
Yes,
he aged. Say that again.
Does DiDio not watch The Simpsons?
Well, I think that is the point that he may have missed, is that Nightwing allowed that aging to stop. Now you have Jason Todd as Red Hood. He has now aged to a point where he will stop aging. You kind of have Tim Drake is at the slightly, 20-ish year old. So now that has stopped. Damian,
it's just not allowed.
I think they're going to have to hold Damian at that like 12, 13, 14 years old for a long time because that is the character now. Yeah. And, all these characters have come in at around that age and they've aged up a little. And I think the history still works. If you have Batman is 40 and Dick is 28 and Jason Todd is 24, you have Robin is 4 years. Dick Grayson is Robin for 4 or 5 years before he takes off. But that seems like the right amount of time.
So what was his problem?
And all these. What was
his problem with it then?
Well, his idea is that you have to have characters that are continuously aging, but Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, those main guys, will never age. So the characters just keep like this, like the logjam. They keep piling up and piling up and piling up behind them, but they stop. They can never get older than Batman. So you have this ever expanding cast that are aging up to Dick Grayson's age, but can never surpass him because Dick Grayson can never surpass Batman.
Well, I kind of agree with you that once they hit those other characters, that they kind of just stop aging at that point.
Yeah. I don't want to see Dick Grayson at 40 because that puts Batman at like 55. I mean, you're getting into like Dark Knight territory at that point, getting closer to it. It could work in Elseworlds and other stories, but unless there is a natural character that would be the next in line. I mean, Jason Todd had a solid 10 years?
Yeah.
About
did he?
I feel.
Yeah.
No, it was less, wasn't it?
Less 8?
Aren't you reading the era of Jason Todd?
Yeah, but I was reading. So I was reading like the
So Death in the Family is 88, I think.
He was. What did he come around as Robin?
85, maybe?
No, it wasn't that short, was it?
He's in that issue where he's stealing the tires off the Batmobile.
That's not his first appearance. That's like his new. That's his new origin.
Yeah.
Oh no, 83 to 88. Okay, yeah. So 5 years. So yeah, it was actually a little shorter than I thought. Tim was Robin for 20 plus years. He was Robin all the way till Morrison, even through Morrison's run. He still was Robin until very recently, until New 52, really. No, even in New 52, he was Robin. So 30 years, over 30 years, Tim Drake was Robin for a significant amount of time. You had Stephanie Brown step in briefly, and obviously Damian became kind of the newer take, but Tim Drake still existed as Robin during all that time. So, God, Dick Grayson was Robin for about 50 years, and about 40, 46, 47 or so.
Well, so Nightwing is, I want to say 84.
Yeah, sounds right.
And so he debuted in 40.
So 44 years. Yeah. So
I do want to shout out, now that we're talking about it, I just realized some of my favorite Dick Grayson material of any era is the Morrison run where he's Batman and Damian is Robin. I wish they'd let that roll for another few years and then brought Bruce back. I know that was always going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think you could have milked that for another 2 years easily.
Not even a question. That was that run was so good. And it didn't feel like they just put a skin over Dick Grayson, right? He really was a different character. He was a different Batman, and it worked so well. Yep. Morrison obviously has got the touch. I'm not sure how many people would have handled that quite right, but Peter Tomasi did a really good job too. Batman and Robin was fantastic.
Just the idea of a smiling, lighthearted Batman with a grim, serious Robin, it's just so fresh and fun, and it was just executed so well.
I actually wish it went on for a little longer.
You do wish it went on for longer? Yeah. No, it was awesome.
That's one of the that's the Nightwing stuff or Bruce or Dick Grayson stuff I really loved of all the stuff I've read. Yeah,
well, I mean, it also had top tier Batman creative teams of all time. Just
that
all happen to be, in the middle of New 52, and just
don't get me wrong. Prior. I love that they've kept that just dynamic with Dick and Damian throughout Scott Snyder's run, throughout Rebirth. They kept that relationship and just the contrasting, but just interaction between the two of them. It's that's what I've really loved going, with it.
Yeah, I know. Damian, again, I'll anytime someone tells me they hate Damian, I'm like, dude, you have no idea what you're talking about. Damian, he is such a good character. He's such a good foil for like Batman and the other Robins. Yeah, I mean, he's just such a piece. This is Toby. This is where you don't understand me. He's just such a piece of shit sometimes, but I love him so much because he is. But there's still that, he still has that heart, right? He still has Batman's kind of
more
sort of soul. I don't understand you not I understand Damien. I don't get that you love these characters in books when in real life you fucking want to kill them.
Oh
In
yeah.
real life, you
Oh,
can't stand them. But in books,
I was gonna say I'd smack Damien in the head if I knew him in real life, but then he'd cut my head off, so I probably wouldn't want to just break me in half. But yeah, no, Damien's a total ass. But it's that conflict between him and the other people. But they're all still Jason Todd never went that far, right? Jason Todd was like a half step towards that direction.
Well,
Damien goes fully, but he also could very easily replace Batman or any of these other characters. So.
Well, I think what the best thing, like the thing about the Robin character itself is no matter who's been in the mantle, the character that's been representative in that, like whether it was Dick or Damien or Tim or Jason Todd, or even some of the others, which there's 50 bajillion Robins now, is that they all kind of represent that dynamic in just the teenage mentality, right? Like they run the gamut of types of teenagers, right? Like Jason Todd was kind of he didn't have the best upbringing, so on and so forth, but there was still goodness in him, right? Damien is a great example of helicopter parenting, right? Like, I mean, not good helicopter parenting, but still helicopter parenting. And then you have, Tim Drake, who has a a single father, raised him, so on and so forth. And so, like, you have these different dynamics of representations of teenagers going into this character. So yeah, I think that
they're all a little different.
But that's I like that there's a freshness to each of these characters, and they don't I think that's again where you say kind of there's a problem with Wally West in that he's just literally seems like a duplicate of Barry. He doesn't have anything that kind of separates him.
I disagree with that because he's not. I mean, he's not as professional. His experiences come kind of from a different place. Silver Age, that's a little different.
Yeah,
modern. They've
the modern one. They've done some things with and tweaked it in there. But again, that early one, like you said, that his origin story. It's
but you can freshen that up. There's ways to go about changing that.
Most of the Robins came into being Robins in one avenue or another.
That's how everything happens. I'd spent a little bit of time over the last couple of weeks reading some Crisis era books, including Kevin. You saw the box set, right? They have that additional whole book in the back that's the compiles interviews in the history of the DC universe and all sorts of just ephemera from the time of Crisis when they had all their notes back and forth. And Roy Thomas, I've read through a big chunk of it. Roy Thomas wrote multiple pitches and multiple pretty. And I'm just kind of surprised they published this because doesn't look good on DC for some of the stuff Roy Thomas wrote, where he was like, "Look, you're basically going to fuck my entire set of books,
yep,
because of Crisis. Every character that I'm involved with, you're doing something bad with, and I don't know what to do." And he left DC shortly after because his books ended not too long later. Infinity Inc. and All Star Squadron and Young All Stars, which was kind of trying to keep the Golden Age alive, the Golden Age versions alive, which are now just wholesale gone.
I think there's an issue of All Star Squadron where there's a picture of the Justice Society, and it's like Back to the Future, where the characters just disappear out of the photo in the actual at the end of the issue. Because there was a Golden Age Aquaman, and they kind of
it's gone.
Then there wasn't, but he's in this team photo, and then it's just gone.
It's great.
Welcome to comics.
Yeah, but I've been I did a big Golden Age read of early action and detective a little while ago on the DC app, and so I've actually started going through the Crisis era Batman books, and just to bring it up because I had a lot of people on Twitter talking to me about this and kind of got some traction. actually reading Batman Year One, the Frank Miller Mazzucchelli book, in regular reading order of reading through Batman from that time period, what a holy hell. It's just like a sack of bricks to the side of the face when that first issue hits. It is like Year One's great. I've read it multiple times, but as a standalone story, going from like, oh, here's that's not Mockingbird. What the hell's her name?
It's that woman with the big spikes of black hair and the red sunglasses.
God, what's her name? Magpie.
Yeah.
Right? Reading like that Magpie story, and then nothing against the creators doing these books. Like, I'm sure they're fine, but like they were like so generic. That Magpie issue, like I must have read that in the past, but I don't remember it. I think it's issue 401 of Batman. It reads like it's out of the 60s TV show, right? It really does. The next two issues, which were fine, but they're just like very generic. I just read these the other day. That's why this is so fresh in my mind. They're just very generic. Oh, Batman fighting a gangster story. And then Year One is like, not only does it stand up, it is still one of the best Batman stories ever. It's unbelievable how good that book is. And that was my post is I can't even, I started reading comics only a few years later, but I couldn't even imagine what it would have been like to have read Year One just as the monthly book following the issues you just read.
Well, but here's the genius of that team is they also did it on Daredevil.
Right.
With Born Again was just dropped in the middle of the regular Daredevil run. And then they just drop in, they burn the earth down, they drop the mic, and they're gone. And it's just like, no, wait, stay longer. Because right after Year One, or right around that time when they're putting out Who's Who, Mazzucchelli was doing a bunch of the Who's Who pieces of the classic Batman villains, like the Riddler in the leotard costume, and the characters you associate as the vintage Batmans.
Yeah, all
villains.
Classics.
And I remember reading the Who's Who and going, oh, no, wait. Does that mean you guys are going to come back and like do him as Batman facing these villains?
Yeah.
Please do that. But no, it was just a tease. It was just Mazzucchelli doing the art on all these pieces. But it was cool to see him do the kind of the crime noir Year One.
Yeah.
And then get a sample of his genius doing classic pop art supervillains.
Right.
But yes, your point was correct. Reading that at the time was an experience.
So, like when I started reading comics, and it was 90, 91. Things like Watchmen and Dark Knight and Year One were already like these legendary books that I had apparently only missed by a couple of years, and it wouldn't have affected me as much reading it when I was like 10 years old or whatever. But especially when you're older, reading those books, you're like, wow, I could, like, again, Watchmen, I couldn't even imagine walking into a shop and picking up an issue of that just next to an issue of like Blue Devil or something, right? Like, look, I love Blue Devil, but it's just a different thing. There was someone tweeted at me, I guess I think it's a Batman 408, I think it was. It was one of the letter columns, and they're like, whoever the hell did the art on this Year One book is the worst artist I've ever seen. And they're just like, really? Dude, David Mazzucchelli is like God tier. His art is so incredible, especially in that Year One book. And it's really funny that they printed this letter just ragging on him. I think the comment was this guy must wake up with like cold sweats every night remembering he sent this letter in. It was very, very funny. If you haven't read Year One, man, go back and read that, especially because I'm trying to get used to the panel view on DC Universe. I did it a little bit when I had like on Comixology. I have a hard time with it. Year One surprisingly works okay in panel view. Something about the way Frank Miller writes it, and obviously Mazzucchelli's art, it works better than I thought it was going to. I'm still not really a fan of the panel view, but you can't really read a full comic page on your phone, so you kind of got to go panel by panel. But read some of those classic runs. Like it's a little bit like Hush. When like Hush was just this megaton dropped on the DC universe when that book came out, and Jim Lee said, like in interviews, he was like, "No, I want this in the actual book. I don't want this to be a special thing." And I appreciate the hell out of that as a comic reader. So,
I mean, I think that's
doesn't happen often.
I think that having the stuff in the actual book is a lot better to go, and you pulling it out for the trade or those key stories, I think works a lot better. But with the constant renumbering and stuff like that, it's difficult to do that.
Well,
now.
yeah, until the 80s, there was no such thing as a miniseries. So everything happened in the main book because that was all there was.
Yeah.
But when you start to get, specials and Secret Wars, and that's one of the other things about I did not realize how much the editorial at DC hated Secret Wars. So reading some of those notes, it's really funny. They rip on Secret Wars like crazy. They're like, this sucks, but it sold a shitload of copies, so we have to do something like it. They're like, every book sold so much better because it tied into Secret Wars, but it's so bad, we can do it better with Crisis. And I was like, wow, okay. Tell me how you really feel.
Well, in fairness to them, Secret Wars was born because Hasbro wanted, or Kenner, I think it was Kenner.
Yeah, with the figures.
Yeah. It was a toy line first and a comic that had to support the toy line. That's why it was mocked, even by people at Marvel. Made fun of it. But because it was Shooter's baby, because we've got this huge high-profile series, 12 issues, right?
Yeah.
I'm sad.
Who does the editor-in-chief assign as the writer of Secret Wars but himself?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So it was made fun of at Marvel and DC.
Oh, yeah. I don't hate Secret Wars, though. I mean, I haven't read it recently.
I like Secret Wars. Now I'm sad. It's like finding out when He-Man was created by a bunch of dudes that was just trying to see what sticks on the wall.
Yeah, of course.
Isn't that Marvel's publishing thing?
I haven't read it in 20 years, probably.
I haven't read it in a long, long time. But I had fun with it.
The art's good.
It was cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something.
What happens in that book?
Just something that they fight Doom on the other planet, drop a mountain on the Hulk.
The Thing.
That's about it.
It gave us jazz hands, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it
that's pretty good.
The Thing? Or no, The Thing just wanted to stay behind. That's right.
Yeah. The Thing stayed behind at the end, yeah.
It's a little side tangent there. That's all right.
Well, now Ryan needs to reread Secret Wars, and we'll revisit this topic in a couple of weeks.
Well, it's funny because Secret Wars, I've got to give Marvel credit for the time of being like, how'd this happen? I don't know. Go read Secret Wars. Why is Spider-Man in a black costume? Find out in a couple months. Over there. That's actually, that works. Yeah. That's good marketing. That's actually damn good marketing, because if you really look, all those characters had a major shift around that time, right? I mean, every character shifted pretty dramatically. Obviously, nothing really lasted, but couple things.
Well, let's give them credit for this though. The Secret Wars tie-ins, and this is going off memory, were legitimately tied into something that happened in Secret Wars.
Yeah.
Where some of those Crisis tie-ins were some bullshit.
Well, They
Look, it's Red Sky. All right, let's fight.
They specifically say like how they didn't collect the Red Sky crossovers in that omnibus, and they actually have every appearance of the Monitor before Crisis in that companion book, because he was supposed to show up in at least one or two. He was supposed to show up in 2 appearances the year prior to Crisis. And it's funny because I've read some of these. I just have no recollection of him appearing in these books in the past, because he's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to give you some money or pay me, and I'll hire a team of henchmen for you. And I'm like,
right.
Huh? Why the hell? I mean, they explain it later that, he was doing this to like test the heroes. But at the editorial end, they're like, we have no idea what this character is going to do.
Right.
He's the bad guy. But wait, he's not the bad guy. Oops. Well, we've been telling people he's been the bad guy for the past year. Oh, well. What are you going to do? And I really liked the fact that the Anti-Monitor, DC has a problem with this, where they come up with a pet name or like a work in progress name, and then they just stick with it. Like New 52 was never supposed to be called New 52, but they just couldn't ever come up with anything better. The Anti-Monitor was not supposed to be called the Anti-Monitor. He was supposed to be called something else, and they never came up with a better name. So they just went, well, I guess he's the Anti-Monitor. And it works. I mean, that name stuck. Nobody questions it, right? But at the time, they're like, this is a stupid name. This is not what he's called, but we don't know what to call him. So this is just our villain name. Good sidetrack.
Older comics.
Final.
They're so great.
Oh, they're fun. They're fun. I love old comics. Final news, obviously, always sad when another golden 50s, 60s.
Yeah, I'd say cool.
Joe Sinnott, long time artist at DC. I'm sorry, at DC at Marvel. Worked for Timely, Atlas, inked tons of books through the 50s, 60s. Worked very closely with Stan Lee. Definitely one of those characters that, or one of those creators that was highly regarded by the artists that he worked with through the years. He actually, I didn't realize this. He actually was still doing the comic newspaper strip until 2019. I did not realize he was still working on it that long.
He officially retired last year.
Yeah. I mean, I knew he was doing comics into the 80s and 90s, but I did not realize he was still doing that comic strip till that point. That is
Amazing Spider-Man. The newspaper?
No, the newspaper strip. Yeah.
The one in.
I did not realize that.
God, I'm like, that thing was still going.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, he was exclusive for Marvel most of the time. Obviously, spent a lot of time doing work on a lot of the projects that Stan Lee was writing. He began inking Fantastic Four with issue 44, and obviously inked a lot of issues of Jack Kirby's work, and inked Fantastic Four regularly into the 80s. So yeah, he worked out a lot of stuff at Marvel, and as days and months and years pass, we're only down to a handful of, at this point, almost no Golden Age creators. Almost nobody that worked in the 40s, 30s, and 40s. 50s and 60s, it's getting slim. It's great to see these people remembered, especially by modern creators who can obviously get the influence from these classic creators. Still never good, but 93 is not a bad age, especially if he was working until he was 92. So that's not bad at all. We are going to move on to some questions here. Got a couple of big ones on Patreon.
Kevin missed an email last week.
Oh my God, did I miss one?
We have a very short episode, so that's fine. I got some big questions here, so let's get
big as in long or big as in big topics?
A little both. Let's see. Tyler says, are you guys able to separate the art from the artist? I was in the middle of rereading Transmetropolitan when the news about Warren Ellis broke. It feels weird to read Spider Jerusalem being an abusive asshole to his female assistants now. Depends on who they are and what they did. There are plenty of times where I haven't liked an artist or a creator, and I just am like, nope, I'm out. I will never read anything by them again or anything drawn by them again. We talk about Ethan Van Sciver regularly on this podcast because he's so connected to some of my favorite comics of all time, Jeff Johns' Green Lantern run and Flash Rebirth. And I won't not read that stuff. I'm still going to read it because of the other people involved, but I obviously won't support anything this person does going forward.
You don't want to get Cyberfrog?
No, I will not. It's tough, right? With Warren Ellis's older work. I do like it. Hard to support going forward, but looking back, it's, I don't know.
Well, I think Tyler's.
I feel like you don't need to necessarily write it off, but.
I think that thing is because it's so fresh, because it was one of those grooming blueberry things with him. Seeing just the treatment of his assistants, in that book, maybe at the beginning, you would see it, but the assistants, if I remember correctly, basically get back at him, right?
Yep.
So like it's I don't know. I think that you can definitely add more to, you can definitely see the writer in the character now. Like you're but then that means you're kind of putting the writer in the Spider Jerusalem character versus
I mean
to a point, yes, but Spider
that's
Jerusalem is Spider Jerusalem. That's kind of that character, and that society bred that type of character. So
sure. I mean, a lot of writers will put a bit of themselves in the characters, but I don't hold the actions of a fictional character to the writer or creator unless there's like, ongoing, just every character the person works with does the same thing. Yeah, Warren Ellis likes to write kind of some dickhead British people. I mean, he kind of writes himself a little bit in some of it, but it's not every character. He has a very specific style. But can you read old Warren Ellis stuff? Again, everyone's going to be different. It depends on the book. Some of it I just don't like anyway. But am I going to say Planetary should be burned from history? No, of course not. But everyone's got their own opinion on what they, what you want to do for yourself when this happens. And, I think if you don't want to support stuff going forward, I mean, that totally makes sense.
Have they released any news about Batman's grave?
No. I'm assuming it's going to continue. It was in the new previews and everything. So, Kevin, Toby, too early to call?
I don't know what to say, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, you've covered a lot of it. I love Planetary. And to go out of comics, I love the Louis C.K. show. Yeah. Not the stand-up special, the FX series.
Man, I did it first. That show, it lost me a couple seasons in, and I never came back. And then everything happened, and I'm like, okay. Something happened to that dude.
but you've already pretty much covered it. It depends kind of on who it is. I'm kind of in a lucky position in this case, not in this case with Warren Ellis, in some cases, because some of these people who turn out to be creeps and a-holes, I didn't like their work at the beginning. So it's no loss to me. Like there is a very big name comic artist who is now on the blacklist, and I'm just not a fan of his work, and I never was.
Yeah.
And so it all works out fine. But sometimes
I haven't read a lot of Warren Ellis' stuff because Transmetropolitan was out of my how to say it, but
you must have read his Stormwatch stuff, though, yeah?
Not really.
I figured that's like peak Wildstorm. I thought that would be right up your alley.
The Wildstorm I collect to 40 yards, sadly, not for them. So I'm not so sure if I'm a fan of his material, anyways, because a lot of people are on the Planetary thing, which I still have to read. Which I picked up those used copies from you like a while ago, so I still have to read them. So, yeah, I'm kind of with Kevin where I might be safe to begin with because I knew to begin with. So, yeah. But if Jim Lee turns out to be a crazy closet freak about something, then I have some weird life decisions to do after that.
Yeah. Well, I talked about like Usual Suspects, right? And I like those especially those first two X-Men movies. I like those a lot, right? I can divorce. In that case, I can divorce.
Well, The Usual Suspects, you've got a double whammy, though.
I know, right.
That one's a little tougher.
Yeah, but damn good movie.
Yeah.
But again, easy to not support stuff going forward. I don't think anyone will support their stuff going forward. Much easier. Bryan Singer, look, if he I mean, he'll never. I can't imagine he'll do anything again at this point. But Fox and Disney aren't going to abandon those X-Men movies. They're not going to we're never going to show these again. No, they're still going to be around. And there's so many other people involved. This isn't like some weird pet project that they did all by themselves, right? I think you got to look, in the case of Warren Ellis and like something like Transmet, I don't know contractually what someone like DC would be able to do, but if they want to say it's Derek Robertson, co-creator of The Boys Transmetropolitan, there you go, right? And drop Warren Ellis's name from promotion. They could very easily do that.
No, but Robertson he did such a great job on those Transmetropolitan books. Like
Oh yeah.
The detail in some of those some of those scenes of just like the cityscapes and stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Whoa.
I don't own too many Helix,
right? So you gotta. It will suck for the other creator where one half of the guy turns out to be an a-hole. You still gotta respect the other half too.
Right. I don't own too many single issues from the Helix time, but I do own Transmet. So remember, Transmet was not Vertigo published; it was published under a different imprint, Helix, when it started. Or Helix. DC had like a sci-fi Vertigo. Crazy times. Edgar says,
weirdly confusing.
Edgar says, "Did you guys still read manga? Toby and Charlie should read Mashal, the Magic and Muscle manga, and everyone should read Chainsaw Man. That feels what it must. It feels to me like how you guys grew up with Sandman. Themes are way different, but the same feelings I have reading it. I've never heard of either of these. Toby, have you heard of Mashal?
Star Fox, I think, recommended Chainsaw Man to me as well.
Oh, really?
And I'll tell you, when he recommended it to me, just from title alone, I kind of just was thinking of Ash from Evil Dead. And
nice.
I don't know what.
Hello to my boomstick.
So I haven't checked it out yet, really. But it's been a long time since I did manga. I just ordered 2 of them through you, but one of them already read a bunch of bad reviews on YouTube, or I didn't read them. I watched reviews on YouTube. So I'm like,
which one?
The Fire Force one.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm already kind of like, oh, do I really want to invest in this one?
Well, I haven't put the order in yet.
Yeah, I'm a little dubious on that one. So, I thought it was all up my alley, right? Because I really got into that one because I saw a really cool fight between this cool chick and this dude, and then I was like, well, it's maybe got cool girl characters. The characters look cool. The premises seems to be okay, and it's traditional shonen jump stuff, right? It's a guy joining another group, and then he has to learn shit. So very, very traditional stuff, but stuff I liked in the past. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'll give this a shot. But I read, or again, didn't read. I watched a lot of YouTube reviews of the girl characters down the road, how bad it gets, and I'm like, maybe I don't want to invest time in this at all. So, what was the other book you recommend? Chainsaw Man, and what's the other one?
Mashal.
Mashal? I'll Google this. Mashle. I gotta Google this to make sure this is correct. Mashal, the Magic and Muscles manga. Yep, there you go. Mashle. Mashal.
Well, I'll check it out. I did order the box set of Silent Voice, which I'm really, really, really excited to read. Actually,
which one is
the box set of A Silent Voice?
A Silent Voice. I don't know that.
It was a really, really big anime movie based on manga. So I ordered the manga box set because I really want to read it first.
Yeah, I mentioned this in another podcast, man. I'm so disconnected from manga and anime now. I still like my old favorites that I like, but I just don't have time. I wish I did. I would love. I would subscribe to Shonen Jump and read 1 billion manga every month if I could.
Yeah, for me, it's like
not enough hours of the day.
That's stuff I like to read in book form, and I invested so much into Bleach, and I don't think I ever finished it. I invested so much into One Piece, and never finished it. So, Naruto, I do want to finish. I completed my Saint Seiya because it's one of the ones I grew up with. Slam Dunk, one of my all-time favorites. But now I'm like, I have new ones I liked, which are old now, like Bakuman and stuff like that, and Hikura no Go. But like new ones, I'm so weary now because I'm scared of collecting 50 books afterwards. I'm very scared of it. Like, I really have to like it for me to be, because I will buy all the books in the end. So
how long could this One Piece last?
Oh my God. Because at one point, I'm like, at 30 books in, I'm like, I guess I'll keep collecting until they're done, so I just have the whole thing, right? And I think at book like 40 or 50, I'm like, fuck this. I'm like, I'm I nothing against One Piece fans. It was like not my pie, right? So, but I there's books I loved, and there's even some like both me and you are buying the Lum books at this point because I'm a big Rumiko fan, but like new ones, I'm just like so weary, man. I'm like, I feel like I did my piece. I'm happy with the collection I have. Sure, I a couple here and there, but man, I'm scared of collecting another 50 manga.
I say that about One Piece, and then I'm also considering purchasing the vast majority of every DC post-crisis comic book. So, I mean, it's really, to me, this is not really a big difference.
Was my manga collecting habit went over to the Epic collections, where I'm like,
Right. Well, I know what I'm getting into with American comic books, right? I already know.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm so excited about Silent Voice, because it's just, I think, 8 volumes or something like that, and there was a box. I just ordered it, and I'm super excited to read that. So, I do miss reading mangas. I really actually do enjoy it. It's just, I can't miss another 50 or 100 books because I'm still finishing Naruto in the end. Like, I'm still missing like 30 volumes of that one.
Yeah, it's so much of it. On a similar topic, question from Gilbert. Says, I'm taking a manga and anime class for college.
There's classes?
Yeah, of course.
What the fuck?
We're old enough now that there's going to be classes, Joey.
Fuck out of here. Wait, is there a comic book class too? And then watch movies?
Oh, there's absolutely been comic books. Yeah, absolutely. It says, my professor is comparing manga to American graphic novels. She says that American graphic novels are more aimed towards teenage male audiences, while manga is for everyone. Would you agree with the statement? I was going to disagree with her, but the more I thought about it, the more I agree that the statement might not be entirely false. Any idea how to tell her in the classes is not the case every time.
Well, nothing is all the time, right? Literally everything in life.
Right. I think if you go back to the 80s and the 90s, I'll even give you some parts of the early 2000s. Yeah, the vast majority of comic books were aimed towards teenage men, but
the 90s especially, man.
Teenage boys.
But the independent, especially the graphic novel scene, and especially now, that's not the case at all. I mean, the dominant graphic novels these days are young adult and all ages, and the majority of those are aimed at a female base. It's a very similar format and idea as manga. It's just aimed at an American audience.
Yeah, but you say overall, though, the statement is not necessarily wrong. Like, overall.
No, I think it is wrong. 100%. Now, today, 2020, yes.
Yeah, but
15 years ago, not so much. Now, today, yes, it's wrong. Because they're not. I would think the vast majority of original graphic novels are aimed at everyone except the teenage male audience, because that's why they're in that format. You look at Fantagraphics, you look at Drawn Quarterly, you look at stuff from Scholastic, you look at all these independent companies, that is not their audience. And that's who's releasing the graphic novels. So superhero comic books, yeah, sure. It's aimed at mostly, not even teenage. I mean, they're aimed at adult men at this point. That is the Shonen Jump, right? I mean, Batman is the Naruto of American comic books. Right?
The regular Marvel DC universe was aimed at us. Now they're still aimed at us because we're old.
Yeah, exactly. But no,
they're reading like the cartoon version of Batman. We didn't read a cartoon version of Batman. We just read Batman. They differentiate like Spider-Man Adventures instead of Spider-Man. Like, it's weird.
There was none. Yeah, that didn't exist. Right. But especially the graphic novel, I mean, our exploding independent or kid section, is proof positive that this is not the case. And those are not like books for babies. Those are very, very high quality, very well made graphic novels aimed at a younger audience, but a lot of manga is too. So
recommending the Hilda.
Yeah, well, sure, same thing, right? I mean, that is not aimed at a teenage. I
mean, like I said, when the one dude, I forgot who it was, but it was actually someone on the Facebook group that recommended it to me specifically. And when I watched the trailer, I was like, "No, this is not for me at all." The show, even the first episode, I'm like, what the hell am I watching here? And then I think by the second or third, I'm like, I'm fucking in. I love this. Even my sister makes fun of me. We went to New York Comic Con and we went to the booth, and I got really excited. She was like, "You're a, close to 40-year-old man. You shouldn't be like into them. It's fantastic."
I know, but again, whatever you like, right? All right, from Zach, he says, if you knew you were going to get a truthful answer, and Kevin, you can take lead on this one. What one question would you ask Dan DiDio?
No,
I don't think he has much reason to beat around the bush anymore. But
as an additional question, I still want you to answer that properly. But what should not ask?
I mean, I hate to ask, but I would love to know what happened. I would love to know his last day. I want to know, because that's it. I think we can assume, but to me, I almost want to know, like...
No. Ryan, you really want to ask, what the fuck is 5G?
Well, that's the same question. That's all part of the same question.
Listen to me.
What'd you say?
Oh, I'm joking. It's a joke. It's a running joke. It was like, look at that panel, but none of you guys want to listen to me. Kevin...
yes, panel.
Sitting right next to me.
Yes.
I remember, Toby. I remember your...
God... Bleeding Cool had some article today. I don't even.
You stopped reading that shit,
dude. I saw it in passing, and it was like, "Oh, elements of 5G still coming," and I'm like, "Get fucking blown out your ass, dude! Like, give it up."
All right, seriously, Kevin.
Yes.
The question,
because you got that. Yeah, yes.
Oh, okay. So here's mine. The last day would be interesting. But I'm afraid that's more of a personnel thing that I just don't know that you'd get much story out of that. What I want to sit down, if I have a truthful answer, I want to say, Dan, tell me in your view, tell me from beginning to end, what went down with Doomsday Clock?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Well,
like, how did it start? What changed along the way? What was going on when you were rescheduling it literally week by week for that one period?
That may be I'm going to change my answer. I'm going to change my answer to that. I do want to know that too.
You know what I would ask? Why do you hate Nightwing so much? Just tell me why. Why?
And, he even says in that interview too, he was saying like, look, part of this is like a game, right? We would play just to rile fans up, to get people excited.
Right, it's part of what we do here. Sometimes with some of our stuff, it's part of the show.
Specific members of this podcast
mm-hmm.
that aren't on as often because they moved to a different state.
Yeah, goddamn loser, Marvel lover.
Got a big question here from Andrew.
Now, is this a big, long question or just like a big topic?
Little of both. He says, could you guys discuss any comics that might be considered culturally insensitive, unintentionally, or even anachronistically, and could see sentimental shifts similar to what we see going on with certain episodes of TV shows? Blackface references or jokes have been the focus of episodes of Golden Girls, Community, The Man Show, just to name a few. Their fates may not be the same, since you can't exactly pull a comic from history the same way you could stop a show from being broadcast, although digital platforms do make that more of a growing reality for comics. Certainly the regard or sentiment towards particular characters or stories shift with time, and maybe even more so in the current climate of social awareness. And I've been wondering which characters or stories may just be a matter of time before their fate is sealed or perhaps exposed for what they represented. I don't...
Can you
There's going to be...
Like, what did he exactly ask?
What comic book... So, there's a bunch of TV shows and movies are getting pulled because of blackface or because of culturally insensitive stuff. Things like Songs of the South. There's been a long history of this happening.
Yeah.
Comic books
they have the new intro for Gone with the Wind.
Yeah. Comic books have not shied away from this material ever. The entire Golden Age and parts of the Silver Age, especially the anti-war stuff, there's all sorts of racist stuff, very racist stuff in that. But DC, mostly DC, because that's where we're doing most of the books at the time. Although Marvel does comment on the stuff when they reprinted their Golden Age stuff, they do have commentary stating look, this was the thing at the time. This does not represent today. Warner Brothers has been very good about this with its Looney Tunes and other animated stuff and movies of kind of giving context.
They have that little place card now that they put at the beginning that states things.
But the two big ones that have one of it has happened multiple times, and the other happened more recently. There have been two very important comics that have been pulled from print and canceled because of the racist imagery inside of them. And I am devastated that neither of these are going to see print, not because of the racist parts, because that's such a small part of the books, but because these are very historically important titles and stories that there's no way to currently buy in print. And that is obviously the Monster Society of Evil, the Captain Marvel story arc, which is like, Kevin, maybe you can correct me, really the first story arc in comic books.
Yeah, it's the first. You could even say it's the first event.
Yeah,
in
right.
comics.
It was actually like a 12-issue ongoing story arc, which does not happen at that point in comic books. This is back in the golden age of Captain Marvel, and introduced Mr. Mind, a personal favorite of myself and Kevin. And the other is the Detective Comics before Batman omnibus that came out, which reprinted the first 26 issues of Detective Comics before Batman shows up. That is some of the most important comic books ever made. It's comic books prior to superheroes, really. It's the lead up, or it would have been prior to Action Comics, those first issues. And while the characters in there's very insensitive stuff compared, for today's standards, they happened. They were made. Their copies are out there. They've been available digitally. They've collected some of it before. You saw up a nice big intro in the beginning that explains why these things are not good anymore, clearly, and talk about the good parts and the good people that came out of these books. And there you go. I'm really mad.
There was an intro in that Detective Comics. They had commissioned a specific essay to set it in its place in history.
Yep, and they didn't print it. I'm
yeah.
This isn't me like SJWs, blah blah blah. No, look,
that before Batman book never came out.
Nope, they canceled it.
Oh man, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, and look, I'm not like, oh yeah, those Golden Age comics are my favorite comics ever. No, but that is. I mean, that's the history of DC Comics. That's what it stands for, right? Detective Comics. It is a very important work, and it's a shame that stuff's not available.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, people are screaming left and right, like you said, of they're pulling this show and doing this and all this stuff. There's been a long-standing argument about removing the N-word from a lot of books, like Mark Twain books, or things of that era. And it's like, there's a point where you're trying to you're trying to erase something that in the act of erasing it makes it more predominant.
Well, it's to me, it's not even the making it predominant. It's that it's not like there's look, we'll get a little political here. Not that it's ever stopped us in the past. I mean, people listening to this podcast under you should be not shocked at all. We're all very, in most cases, very liberal people here on this podcast. All elitist West Coast liberals.
Wait, elite?
But like when you have a statue up of Robert E. Lee that's celebrating that person, collecting Monster Society of Evil is not celebrating the murder of actual human beings or the racist elements within that book. It's a historical presentation of something that a printed work, and you can put context in there to explain why this was the way it is and why this is no longer the way things are, that we have become better than these caricatures. It's not like the book's premise is to push positivity of racism. Like, that's not what these are for. So I think I have always felt that you don't censor or hide those old Disney cartoons. You don't censor or hide Song of the South. I'm not saying that Disney should be like throwing it back in theaters or anything like that. But to me, it's like, what's that?
You can use them as educational tools.
Yeah. I think they make sense within a certain context. No, I mean, clearly there's some work that's like, okay, well, this is just clearly.
Yeah. I mean, look, I grew up with a lot of Disney comics, obviously, and I remember some of the really early ones where I read some reprints from, like, the 60s and stuff like that. And, I'm making up the time period because I don't remember. But,
it's probably earlier, yeah.
Maybe adventures where, there's, Mickey and Goofy and Donald would go into the jungle, and, they would meet the natives in the jungle, and at the time.
Or look at like Asterix and Tintin, and a lot of those European
absolutely
books.
Right. It's absolutely same thing, right? So, but as a kid, I never thought that could be, that could be constructed like in a wrong way, right? But as one now, in the time we're living now, looking back, I'm like, that probably wasn't right. So, or is not right? But it didn't take away from the books I read then, and it didn't invoke any, bad feelings, so, but it's just part of history. But, like, even like the Smurfs, right? They censored the purple Smurf, like you used so, but to me, like, that censoring doesn't matter to me because it doesn't take away from the story at all. Like, so yeah, I think I brought that up the other week too. City Hunter, which with what's going on today, will never get reprinted or
right.
It's about a detective that's a horn dog who runs around with a hard on. Like literally in the book, he has a heart. Like in the cartoon, in the book, he literally runs around with a hard on, which in today's time will not fly like at all, right?
Well, with like the cancellation of cops, I actually am like, that is a real thing, and I'm okay with that. But look, I hate guns, but I love me some John Woo movies where people are shooting the shit out of each other for hours. I can separate these things as
And
fiction, entertainment, and reality.
These Asterix books, where Davis, I still enjoy the books, but I understand that's not right.
Yeah.
So Ryan, you don't want to stand outside the shop with an AK and another gun and point it at people walking by?
No, I do not. I know it's hard to believe, but yeah. So I think some of these comics will get taken down. Probably, I could see a lot of that. They used to call it Super Dickery. If you look up Super Dickery online, they show a lot of those covers and a lot of those kind of more racist comics from the Superman era, especially the World War II stuff. I could see some of those kind of disappearing from digital or maybe just not reprinting Golden Age collections. But to me, I don't agree with it because it's there, and I don't.
Again, I think stuff that's written in that era, that's using the language of that era, that's using kind of just the overall, unfortunately, like temperament of the era, is something that is more of a historical thing. It's not like it's not like there was a Superman comic that was just blatantly racist and pushing racist propaganda at readers. Right, like
again, some of those World War II books were pretty rough. I mean, it was under the guise of America of like American superiority over, especially the Japanese.
But there's a different. Like, I think there's a difference between the whole us versus them and like wartime efforts. Right. When you have that, where it's more of like this is a conflict and two things are butting heads. It's gross, it's disgusting, but it's the same mentality of you're a fan of this team or a fan of this team and going at it. It's more drastic and disgusting.
I mean, it's American propaganda. It's American war propaganda, but it's not. No, there's not a Superman comic where he's like outwardly racist or anything like that.
And I think that you look at things again in the historical context of when this is written. Right. It's, you have these things that take place, and yes, they're horrible things and they're shitty things. And we've hopefully learned from them and grown from them, but going in and saying, we're just going to get rid of that entirely. It's like, I think it's something you're missing the whole point of acknowledging.
Even today, most Batman comics are about Batman beating the shit out of some, 99%er that wouldn't be living a life of crime if there was not income inequality, right? I mean, you can't. You just some of it you have to separate from the real world, and I feel like most of the time the comic books are not
comics
outwardly
can just burn and be never printed. Like those are perfectly like.
And, you know, I mean,
trash fire.
A lot of those. I mean, it's the people behind it, not necessarily the books or stories. Mostly just bad, but in those cases, it is more the people behind it. Final question of the night is from Josh. He says, I know there are reasons Marvel and DC were bought by large corporations for the IP and movies, shows, and etc., but not for the actual comic books. I know anything is possible, but is there a real chance they farm out the actual comic books to other companies? Well, this has been every clickbait's main topic of conversation for the last...
Isn't this like one of the things that like Bleeding Cool gives out in their HR like training videos, like
Cosmic Book News is proof that Warner Brothers is going to sell DC Comics to Disney. Yeah. I mean, possible. Yeah, sure. Likely, I'd say almost no chance. The amount of
brand, like Marvel is a brand, DC is a brand. Like you would be selling like a huge brand away when.
Well, he's saying not. DC, Warner Brothers, AT&T, and Disney will never sell the IP of DC Comics and Marvel Comics. However, the ability of them physically printing the comic book. So would they license all the Marvel characters to IDW? Would they license all the DC character comic books to Boom Studios or whatever? I mean, it's possible, but I think it's fairly unlikely.
Very possible.
It is possible, but I think at the end of the day, it's unlikely. Marvel maybe slightly more so than DC because Disney does license their characters out to a lot of places. It basically allows them to not have to carry the burden of the success of the title. They have so many books and so many merchandising rights that go everywhere.
Now that they own Marvel, they don't even publish their own books, that they still have other companies doing the actual Disney properties, as in, Mickey, Donald.
But Disney also spreads it. They spread it thin, or not spread it thin. They spread it out that this company and this company and this company and this company over here is this market. This company over here is this market. The problem is you have to look at a market that can go to comic book stores, which is really limits. It's not a book store, it's a comic book store. So you suddenly are limited to comic book companies. And also they can publish the quantity that Marvel does. Boom, IDW, they're not publishing the quantity of comics that Marvel releases. Nobody's publishing the amount of the quantity that DC is releasing. Now, I'm not saying that they couldn't partner with them, but to me, Marvel and DC as comic book companies alone are very profitable. So why they already have the system in place? They didn't buy Marvel to then give the comic books to someone else. They bought Marvel to have a comic book company, right? I think Warner Brothers has owned DC for so long at this point. They're definitely not going to give them up now that the movies and TV shows are going full steam. They would have done it years ago if they were going to.
They even had a big partnership even before WB bought DC.
Right. AT&T could fucking dump the 20 parts of Warner Brothers tomorrow. I have no idea, right? But like on a individual level, let's keep the comic books around but give it to another company to publish. I think there's almost no chance. Not anytime soon. Not in the current day. Again, who knows what's going to happen in a couple of years, 10 years, 30 years. I have no clue. Today, next couple of years, I just don't see it. There's been no indication from the companies, and I've talked to people at Marvel and DC, not specifically like, hey, are you selling? But like, it's full steam ahead. I mean, there's not
Ryan,
really...
does that mean you're interested in buying DC if it's up for sale?
Can't you see doing like Spider-Man Adventures books, stuff like that?
Well, even those IDW books, man, They're late as hell. They're barely coming out. They're now doing like reprint one-shots. Like, I think that line is basically dead at IDW. So whatever the deal with that was, clearly it's not working because they're not coming out.
Well,
so
the Star Wars stuff, they've already gone. They're renumbered it again.
Yeah,
and so
it's a different audience, though. I mean, IDW has a big kids audience. Marvel, for whatever reason, they just cannot crack that nut. DC's with the independent graphic novel, or with the small
the DC
young adult graphic
and
novels and the kids, and DC's always had a pretty strong following. But obviously, even DC licenses all those characters out to companies that make board books and young reader books and blah blah blah. That's not published by DC, so yeah, I can't imagine anytime soon anything is going to change. So I think it's more likely that Warner Brothers or Disney would buy another comic book company for their IPs.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could see them buying like, a Boom or an Image or a IDW or something if it made sense. Say that last part.
No, I think I just misunderstood you earlier, but I agree.
Oh. Yeah. I don't know. Who knows? Every Friday something crazy happens with DC apparently. So shit, maybe they're going to sell to Oni next week. So I have no fucking idea.
I don't think Oni can afford it.
yeah.
Somehow Slave Labor Comics ends up with the DC.
Slave Labor even still around? I mean, that's our hometown. I'm always like
not real.
Yeah.
I mean, legally yes, but not.
I had somebody come in and ask about them on Monday. I was like,
yeah, they don't really.
God.
I mean, they're a hometown team, right? So I mean,
yeah.
A root for slave labor, but that's a bummer. And I mean, they were big when I was working at Legends.
Yeah. They just don't really publish too much stuff anymore.
Yeah, like there was no tomorrow at the time, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that is a wonderful, wonderful podcast. Kevin, thank you for staying awake through the whole thing. I mean, to keep you up past
bedtime.
It's like past my bedtime now. Are you kidding me? I'm so tired.
Wait, bedtime, right?
No.
Yeah.
By the time I edit this podcast and publish it, I'll be ready for bed. That's for damn sure. Kevin's been up since like 4 a.m. Sorry, Toby. Some of us need more sleep than your 2 hours a night.
I didn't call out Kevin. I called out you.
Look, man, getting old. Days are long. We have to thank our good friends on Patreon, Joe Duff, Andrew Nelson Mendez at Recovery of an Anime Junkie Podcast, Craig Anderson at CraigPAnderson.com, James Laws, Jimmy Rivera at the Social Forum Podcast. That's the socialforum.buzzsprout.com. Jesse Peterson at Comic Book Matters Podcast. Mr. Rama, he's at Hellboy_ebooks on Twitter with his weekly pull list. And Chav, thank you all for your continued support, as well as everyone else that backs us. Patreon.com/Comic Conspiracy. For as little as $1 a month, you can help support this podcast. We'll have a new Patreon list next week, that July Patreon. By the time you hear this, it's too late. But, you can get on for August. We'll say your name. Thank you. Pip your stuff, whatever you want. Please go to comicspiracypodcast.com, geekbox.net, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify for all our previous episodes. YouTube.com/comicsconspiracy. If you really love that YouTube, you can listen to our episodes on there as well. No video, just audio, but hey, we're there. The Comic Conspiracy at geekbox.net. Send those long form questions. I did get one this past week to put in the vault to read down the road.
Oh, did they give you a specific date to read it?
No, they just said for the vault. Here's a current event.
Whoever sent that, well played. That is a long-time listener.
Yeah.
Here's a current event. How did this play out a couple of years in the future?
He'll reference the pandemic and Trump.
comicsconspiracy.biz is, of course, our store website, and you should definitely go on there. Lots of great stuff.
Yeah, my mind always pops into your head whenever you talk about the website because I got to ship the stuff. So
Brock can ship you all sorts of good stuff from our site.
Sweet packing jobs, let me tell you.
ConspiratorBrock.com. That's Brock's blog, video pull list, and unboxing videos. Go watch his stuff over there. Charlie's at the Wanderers in the Fourth Dimension podcast. That's his Doctor Who podcast. You can check that out. And LeanneHill.com is my wife Leanne's website. You can see all her artwork, and it's all also available at etsy.com/shop/LeanneHillArt. If you're on Twitter, give me a follow. I'm Ryan Higgins Ryan. Brock is Brock Sager. Toby is Toby XI. Kevin is that Kevin Sharp. The store is ComicsCon store. And we're a little late recording Geekbox this week. I think we're going to record tomorrow night. Had some conflict last night, so we should have an episode.
Geekbox on a Wednesday night? Man, you're going to be beat.
I told them, like, look, I can record at like 9:30 at night if you want to wait for me. Otherwise, do it yourself. Last week's episode, though, we talked all about Last of Us 2. And it's
you
funny.
Don't like the game.
Well, no, I said I was mediocre on Last of Us 1. I have not played Last of Us 2, so I have no opinion of it. However, some people that are pretty excited for Last of Us 2 have heard some pretty mixed reviews, and we'll leave it at that. And, of course, Manga Machinations, maybe they've read Bumble. No, what I said? What was that book? Was
Chainsaw Man and Marshall?
Yeah, whatever that was. Muscle. The Muscle book. Go read those. Manga Machinations probably read them. And check out their podcast and, tell them we sent you. That's it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with a new episode.